Author's claim. The benchmark is track the development of an argument, identifying the specific claim or claims, evidence, and reasoning. So, when we track the development of an argument, we have to look at the claim that the author is asserting that is true. Now, remember, it does not have to be true. A claim can either be fact or opinion. Claims can be used alone or with other claims to form a larger argument. An argument is a coherent series of reasons, statements, or facts. So we would say this is the evidence that the author has to have to support or establish their point of view. So let's look at an example of author's claim. Mars is our neighboring planet and has some interesting similarities to Earth. Mars, also known as the red planet, is a rocky planet with an active atmosphere. Mars has seasons, ice caps, and landforms such as volcanoes and canyons. Scientists have proven that Mars has experienced ancient flooding. One day on Mars lasts 24.6 hours, which is very similar to Earth. With all these similarities to our home planet, scientists often wonder if life will exist on Mars in the future. How does the author develop the claim that Mars is like Earth? So, in the question, they're actually telling us the claim. The claim is that Mars is like Earth. That is what the author is claiming. Now we're going to find our reasons, our evidence that backs up what that author's claimed. So, A, by showing examples of how they are related. B, by showing how Mars is a better planet. C, by showing that we know more about Earth. D, by showing examples of how they are different. So if we look at this text, we're going to actually narrow down some of these choices. Well, we know that they're not telling us how Mars is better than is a better planet. Okay, that's definitely not a choice that they're showing. They're also not showing that we know more about Earth. So B and C would not be good answers to pick. But if we look at it more carefully, A and D are good examples. So let's look at A again by showing examples of how they are related. Well, if we look, they're telling us how they are similar. For example, it says one day on Mars lasts 24.6 hours, which is very similar to Earth. That would be them showing examples of how they are related. They also talk about how Mars has seasons, which is something that we have on Earth as well. D, by showing examples of how they are different. There are some ways that they are different, but a lot of the ways that they were showing us are more of the same. Seasons, we have those. Ice caps, yes. Landforms, volcanoes, and canyons. Those are all the same things that we have on Earth. So A would be the better choice. All right, let's look at another example. Let's read this together. So make sure you're reading the text with me. Horse owners must be responsible caregivers 365 days a year. A horse depends on its owner for food, which consists of hay and grain. They need supplies of clean water and a dry, safe shelter, such as a barn. That shelter also needs to be cleaned every single day to keep the horse healthy. Hoof maintenance and veterinarian care are required as well. Owners must also provide regular exercise through riding and allowing horses to stroll around a fenced in pasture. Which evidence does the author supply to support the claim that horse owners must be responsible caregivers? So let's look at that again. That question actually tells us the claim. Horse owners must be responsible caregivers. So what we're looking for is that evidence that backs that up. So I'm going to give you a second for you to look over the answer choices. Pause the video, look at the answer choices. Which answer would you pick that shows that claim that horse owners must be responsible caregivers? All right, so let's narrow down our answer choices. Okay, so the author describes different horse breeds. Well, no, they're not even talking about different horse breeds or different types of horses, is what they're saying in that answer choice. And no, they're not talking about that. The author provides reasons for owning a horse. Possible. So we'll leave that one to stay. C. The author compares horse owners to other pet owners. Are they comparing, talking about any other pets? in this text? Well, no. So we know that that's not a claim that the author is making, and that wouldn't be the evidence that supports horse owners must be responsible caregivers. D, the author states things that need to be done to care for horses. Well, let's look at that carefully. Caregivers care. Yes, that would be the better choice. So if you pick D, you are correct. All right, here is an exit ticket. Read the passage, then answers the question on a sheet of paper. Make sure you read through the text carefully, pause the video, read through the question choices carefully as well. Make sure you pause the video. All right, here is another question that has to do with author's claim on the same text. Again, pause the video, read over the text, make sure that you look back in the text, because remember, an author is going to make a claim, right? Their claim is going to be what they say is true. They have to back it up with facts and evidence. Just a reminder that we are looking at author's claim. We're tracking the development of an argument, identifying the specific claims, evidence, and reasoning. So remember, a claim is something that they're saying is true. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It is either it's can be either be a fact or an opinion. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And of course, I have additional resources on Kahoot and TPT.